It was the one night of the year that glittered with promise for everyone. Everyone, that is, except Claire Benson. Unlucky in love, she had long sworn off dating, convinced that romance wasn't in the cards for her. But when her best friend Anna, an eternal optimist, begged her to give it one last try, Claire reluctantly agreed. Anna had set her up on a blind date, and Claire, despite her skepticism, couldn't bring herself to say no. Claire stepped into the cozy bistro on Christmas Eve with only one expectation: disappointment. Another night of forced small talk, another failed connection. She had been here before. But as she walked into Lumiere, the quaint little bistro Anna had insisted was magical, she was met with an unexpected sight. The restaurant was as charming as promised, bathed in the soft glow of fairy lights, the air rich with the smell of pine and freshly baked bread. It should have been a perfect setting for a first date, but Claire's stomach tightened with the kind of anxiety she had come to expect on these occasions. Still, she told herself this would be just like all the others. She wouldn't get her hopes up. The hostess greeted her with a smile and led her to a table in the corner by the window. Claire's heart skipped a beat. What would he look like? Would the conversation be easy or forced? Maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of something real. But as she approached the table, her breath caught in her throat. There, sitting across from her, was Jason Hill, her ex-fiancé. The man who had broken her heart 5 years ago, the one who had left her standing at the altar with nothing but shattered dreams. The man she had been unable to forget, no matter how hard she tried. She froze, unable to move. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. How could this be happening? Jason's face mirrored her shock. He stood up slowly, his expression a mix of surprise and something else. Regret, pain, maybe even guilt. He opened his mouth to speak but seemed unsure of what to say. "I didn't know it was you," Jason said, his voice tentative, almost apologetic. Claire's legs threatened to buckle beneath her, but she stood firm. "Neither did I," she replied, her voice steady but betraying the rush of emotions swirling inside her. Her mind raced. How had Anna not known? How could this be happening? For a brief moment, Claire considered walking away, fleeing from the past that had haunted her for so long. But something stopped her. Curiosity, perhaps. Or maybe, just maybe, a small part of her had never fully let go of the man who had once been her whole world. She took a deep breath, forced herself to sit down and looked him in the eyes. "I guess we should talk then." Jason nodded, sitting back down, his movements slow and uncertain. The air between them crackled with unspoken words, with ghosts of a relationship that had ended too soon and too painfully. They ordered wine, the silence between them stretching uncomfortably as they sipped their drinks. For a while, neither of them seemed able to breach the emotional wall that separated them. "So, how have you been?" Jason finally asked, his voice softer than she remembered. "Fine," Claire replied curtly. "Busy with work. You?" "Same," Jason said. "Just working." The conversation felt like pulling teeth at first. But gradually the tension began to ease. They began to speak more freely, dipping into the deeper currents of their past, the memories that had once defined them. And then Jason spoke the words Claire had never expected to hear. "I've thought about you a lot, Claire," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I know it's been a long time, but I've never really forgiven myself for the way things ended." Claire's breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had both dreaded and hoped for. The moment when Jason would finally acknowledge the wreckage of their relationship. The moment that could either heal old wounds or tear them open forever. "You were the one who left," Claire said quietly, her voice steady but raw with emotion. "You were the one who wasn't ready to get married, even after everything we'd been through. I had to pick up the pieces of my life while you just walked away." Jason's face twisted with regret. "I know. I know I hurt you and I've regretted it every single day since. I wasn't ready then, but I thought I was. I was scared, Claire. I thought if we got married I'd lose something. Freedom, maybe. Control over my life." "Your heart," Claire whispered, her voice tinged with bitterness as she remembered the ache of those days. "Yeah," Jason admitted, his voice cracking. "I was stupid. I didn't know how to handle something real. I was afraid of how much I loved you. How much you meant to me." Claire's chest tightened with the weight of it all, the love they had shared, the promises they had made, the pain of losing it all. But something unexpected stirred inside her too. A sense of closure, of finally hearing the truth she had spent years trying to forget. For the first time in a long time, she felt the bitterness begin to melt away, replaced by something almost akin to peace. They talked for hours, their conversation shifting between laughter and tears as they unearthed old memories, good and bad, and for the first time, began to heal the wounds they had inflicted on each other. Claire found herself softening, her walls crumbling little by little. Just when it seemed like the evening could turn into something redemptive, a new tension filled the air. Jason hesitated, fidgeting with his wine glass, his expression shifting to something more serious. "Claire," he began, his voice tight with hesitation. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping to myself." Her heart skipped a beat. What could he possibly have to say now? "I'm married," Jason said, the words hanging in the air between them like a heavy fog. Claire's vision blurred, the shock of his revelation hitting her like a punch to the stomach. She struggled to catch her breath. "Married? You're married?" Her voice was barely a whisper, the sting of his betrayal cutting deeper than anything she had ever imagined. Jason nodded, his face clouded with guilt. "I got married a year ago, but I don't love her the way I loved you. I've been a mess ever since I walked away from us." The words hit her like a wave, crashing over her, pulling her under. Everything she had hoped for that night, everything she had thought was possible, shattered in an instant.
The fallout of Rosalie Martin. The ballroom was still spinning in Rosalie Martin's mind as she struggled to regain her composure. The chaos around her was surreal. A man in an impeccably tailored tuxedo knelt beside her, concern flickering across his sharp features. His voice, calm and steady, broke through the fog of her despair. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked softly. Rosalie blinked, trying to focus. I'm Rosalie Martin," she murmured, her voice trembling. "Though I doubt anyone can help me now." The man's eyebrows rose slightly, recognition dawning on his face. "Rosalie Martin," he repeated, almost to himself. Then, with an air of finality, he retrieved a thick stack of papers from inside his jacket. Without warning, he snapped a quick photo of her stunned face. Rising to his full height, he addressed the room with a commanding voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Rosalie Martin has been officially served," he announced. "These documents, along with the attached photos and videos, are part of the divorce proceedings initiated by her husband, Anthony Martin." A hush fell over the crowd as whispers rippled through the room. The man continued, his tone dripping with irony. "For those who haven't yet seen the contents of these files, fear not. They're part of the public record now. Digital copies are available upon request for a nominal fee." With a theatrical bow, he exited, leaving behind a storm of tears, accusations, and shattered illusions. Rosalie's world unravels. Still clutching the divorce papers, Rosalie sat frozen on the ballroom floor. Her once magnetic confidence had evaporated, replaced by sheer humiliation. She scanned the faces of the attendees, no longer admiring or envious, but filled with disdain, pity, or outright disgust. The room she once commanded with her charm now felt suffocating. Unable to bear the weight of their stares, she collapsed into Deidre's arms, her sobs echoing through the hall. Nearby, Peter Clem barked orders to his staff, his face flushed with fury. "Gather every single one of those photos and destroy them." "Immediately," he snapped, turning his glare to Helen. The company's HR director, he spat. "I want a reprimand letter from Anthony Martin on my desk by Monday, followed by his termination papers." Helen's expression remained poised. "That won't be possible, sir," she replied. "Mr. Martin resigned earlier today. His accrued leave was already approved, and his resignation was accepted by the board chairman. Your father." Peter's face turned beet red as Helen continued, her tone calm but firm. "Additionally, Mr. Martin already secured a new position with a consulting firm. You personally sign off on his transfer." Enraged, Peter muttered curses under his breath, cursing both his father and Anthony. A journey to freedom. Far from the chaos, Anthony Martin was steering his custom-designed, all-wheel-drive Chevrolet SUV out of New York City. The deep growl of its turbocharged engine echoed his own sense of liberation. Anthony had waited for this moment for years. The GPS estimated a 24-hour drive to his new residence in Austin, Texas, but Anthony wasn't in a rush. For the first time in years, his time was his own. He chose scenic backroads over highways, planning stops at roadside diners and markets along the way. He relished the thought of small-town charm, homemade preserves, and authentic conversations. a stark contrast to the pretentious elite circles he had left behind. The divorce settlement, while not perfectly equitable, left him financially secure. Rosalie, with her trust funds and penthouse, would barely notice the loss. But for Anthony, the fund symbolized a fresh start, a way to reclaim his independence. Rosalie's collapse. Back in New York, Rosalie's parents drove her home. Silent tears streamed down her face as she replayed the night's events. She had spent the ride crafting justifications for her actions, convincing herself that her infidelities were harmless, a release from stress that had no bearing on her love for Anthony. But stepping into their shared penthouse, now eerily devoid of his belongings, shattered her delusions. The emptiness of the space mirrored the void left in her life. Collapsing onto the cold marble floor, Rosalie sobbed uncontrollably. For years, she had dismissed Anthony as a mild-mannered, predictable husband, easy to manipulate, but she had underestimated his resolve. The reckoning spreads. The fallout extended far beyond Rosalie. Deidre, her closest confidant, was also ensnared. Emails and videos exposing her complicity had reached her husband, who promptly threw her out. Furious spouses across the city confronted their partners, igniting a chain reaction of betrayals and heartbreak. At Clemenson and Sons, the scandal sent shockwaves through the company. Randolph Clemens, the aging chairman, was forced to resume leadership after removing his son Peter from power. The company teetered on the brink, its future uncertain without Anthony's groundbreaking designs. A new chapter in Austin. Anthony arrived in Austin to a warm welcome from his new colleagues. His luxury high-rise apartment, pre-furnished and prepaid for 6 months, offered stunning views of the city. Plans for a barbecue were already underway, promising opportunities to meet the vibrant local community. With a newfound sense of purpose, Anthony envisioned his future, building a company that reflected his values, adopting a loyal canine companion, and perhaps finding love with someone who shared his dreams. As the Texas sun dipped below the horizon, Anthony felt nothing but gratitude for the bold choices that had led him here. Behind him lay a trail of reckoning. Ahead, the promise of a life rebuilt on his terms.